Hello, champions. It's Ivanka Trump. Take your designer pants off and get ready for my favorite podcast, The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve. You may be wondering why I told you to take your pants off. So I'm just going to tell you, I do it because it's so good that it makes me shit my pants. I'm just doing my part to keep you from ruining a good pair of designer pants. I've got mine off.
Hold on a minute. Trump has something to say. My darling Ivanka, we have plenty of money to buy a new pair of pants. I do go poo-poo-poo in my pants. I fill them up with beautiful brown poop. But then Eric cleans me up and brings me a fresh pair. So true. If you think about it, it gives me quality time with my son.
Wow, you make a lot of really good points, Daddy. My pants are on, and I'm excited to see what happens on this episode of The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve, my favorite podcast.
Okay, let's start this beautiful podcast.
All right, let's start this beautiful podcast, dude.
Where's Nick?
I'm right here.
Wow, that's quite an open. I prefer she kept her pants off, though. I really hate how hot she is still, okay? I don't want to be attracted to a Trump, but damn, she's hot.
Dude, I couldn't agree with you more on this topic. I'm just like, God, why does she have to be so hot and a Trumper? And most of these bitches, it makes me, I think they're uglier when they're so Trumpy, but she doesn't seem to affect me, dude. I don't know why.
At least she stepped away from it all. You haven't seen her on any campaign trail, no speeches or anything, right? So
exactly, dude. So, yeah. Welcome to the podcast. This is The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve, obviously endorsed by the Trump children and sometimes Donald himself.
Where's Nick?
I'm here, dude. We're doing the show.
Yeah. And we may have pooping in pants news to get to today. Who knows?
Oh, wow.
Need to know news. Back again, everybody. Find our websites, thevocalminority.net, and that will direct you to our socials. Or you can just go right to your favorite social media platform and find us there. Our current favorites are in this order. Coming in number 3, YouTube. Number 2 is TikTok. Number 1 with the bullet, as they say in the radio world, would, of course, be Reddit.
Oh, yes, Reddit. You've been very good to us. We applaud in the way you push this program. And obviously, to all the people who are digging the content, thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely. And I think we have a phone line because we're old school. We're radio and we're podcasting.
Yeah, we welcome you to use your telephone as a microphone. Dial the podcast, 844-48-VOCAL. You can comment on the show. Tell us to piss off. It really matters not, dude. It's all about you and what you want to say.
I'm glad you said piss off. I'm glad we could cover the spectrum of body waste in the first 2 minutes of the show.
Yes, dude. I can't wait to, you mentioned that we may have pooping news or farting news, and I'm all about that, dude. I love that kind of stuff.
I will prioritize it, but we do have some Trump poop news to get to today. So it's need to know news. So these are the things we feel people need to know, you know?
Indeed.
This is Need to Know News. News you need to know.
Hello, Americans. This is Paul Harvey. Stand by for news. Steve Harness.
Hello, champions. All right, I'll tease you on the poop news. We'll get to that today in this hour, I promise. But we got to start off. I mentioned earlier that Nick and I are radio guys. We've been on the radio 27, 28 years, something crazy like that.
Crazy.
And, some of that was talk radio. That is where the Vocal Minority first started. We used to do the show in a few different markets around the country. It was a call-in talk show. People called in, and to caller number 2, hey, well, it was fun stuff. But a lot of our radio careers also been in music radio, rock and roll from every decade, really.
Oh, that's true. Since the inception of rock and roll all the way through the grunge years and, up to 2024 for crying out loud.
That's right. We're hip like that. We're used to taking requests in the music side of things where someone calls in and wants to hear some Pearl Jam or Maroon 5 or whatever the hell it is. And, sometimes we play it for you. Sometimes we say, yeah, I'll see what I can do. And then we go, that's a terrible song request. We throw it out the window.
Yes, exactly. I can't tell you how many times I got real good. We both did it, saying like, ooh, that's a good idea. Let me see what I can get to.
Right. And then someone would inevitably call back and be like, when are you going to play it? And I was like, did you step away from the radio? They're like, well, I went to the bathroom. I'm like, well, I played it right then. You must have missed it. Sorry.
Right.
But anyways, now in our new political and news-centric show, we're taking requests of a different kind. Somebody named Corey reached out to us on TikTok. And Corey recently discovered the page of ours on TikTok. He's been watching the videos. And he seems to be one of these either center or left-leaning kind of guys that I don't know, maybe has a hard time keeping up with the news or wrapping his head around, all of the propaganda and craziness we're hearing. So Corey had a request for you and I, Nick.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think Corey's in the minority, by the way. I think, like we've talked about, we're also kind of fatigued on all of politics as a whole. So I think there's a lot of people who feel like Corey does.
I believe so. Do you get people in your real life that ever call you or text you and are like, hey, I know you're like politically savvy. Can you explain this news story to me?
No.
Really?
Oh, you know why? Because I gave that information out so freely that people know where I stand. I mean, sometimes people will call me and be like, what's your thoughts on this? I heard this. What are your thoughts? But like, as a whole, people know where I stand.
But they don't ever want you to translate a story. Like, I have a few friends. Sure. Emily back in Michigan will often text me and be like, I'm out of the news cycle. I'm just seeing this headline. I'm hearing people talk about this. Can you just explain what's actually going on?
Yeah, that's funny. I do get some of that. However, I have those calls with you. Like I think you're better at that, dude. I really think you dissect a story well and explain it well. So
interesting. Well, let's test that theory out because Corey asked us to dissect and explain a right-wing talking point that's going around right now, and it's based on an actual news story. But as often happens, somewhere between facts and the MAGA mouth, things just all fall apart.
Yeah, they're on the complete opposite ends of the spectrum, right? I mean,
right. Yes, exactly. So recently here, you all may recall, this is going back almost a year at this point. 10 months maybe. Trump was found civilly guilty of almost $500 million in fines and penalties for defrauding bank loan documents and whatnot in New York City. This is a civil case. This is not any of the criminal cases.
Criminal. Yeah, that's right. And I do believe it happened in February 2023. But yeah, there was a $454 million judgment.
That is exactly correct. It's up to $478 million now, though, with interest, which is accruing daily. So
love it.
Yeah. So this finally made its way to the appellate court in New York. And this was their chance to try to have it overturned or maybe lessen the fine or something. So this is Trump's lawyers trying to appeal the decision. Their ultimate goal, of course, would be to have it thrown out.
That's right. Thus far, I think it's important to mention that Trump, while you said he's gaining interest, did he have to pay some like $150 million?
I believe it was $175 million. There was a bond that he had to post in order to even take it to the appeals court. And the appeals court many months ago granted him a favor for some odd reason. And they told him, instead of the $450, just give us like $175 and we'll call it good for now. We know you're good for the rest, right?
Right. Yeah, supposedly.
Right. So anyways, let me just run through part of the news story, and then I will tell you what the right-wing talking point is going on out there. And I will say, ever since Corey shared this, I don't know if it's just my algorithm or what, but this thing is spreading. This one dude may have started it that he sent us, but I'm seeing this all over the place now, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah, it must have hit your algorithm because I'm not.
Okay, good. Well, so lawyers for former President Donald Trump and New York Attorney General Letitia James' office squared off recently at the state appeals court over whether a trial court's February, I think it was February this year, $454 million civil fraud judgment against Trump, which has now grown to over $478 million with interest, whether or not it should be overturned. Okay. Several of the 5 judges, so this is a 5-judge panel that these lawyers go up and speak to, and the judges get to ask them whatever questions they want. They can interrupt, they can throw curveballs. It's, you're at their whim. Several of the 5 judges in Manhattan who are hearing the appeal expressed interest in clarifying the limits of the Attorney General's authority to sue businesses under the fraud statute that was used against Trump. Trial Judge Arthur Engoron concluded that Trump violated the statute by misleading lenders for years with sometimes huge over-evaluations of his assets, which got him better loan terms. Of the 5 judges, only one of the 5, Judge David Friedman, appeared to be skeptical of this whole thing. He had a lot of critical questions on that topic.
Yes, I think, do you have his exact quote? Because I have it.
No, go ahead.
Justice David Friedman questioned the Attorney General's authority, given that Deutsche Bank is not saying they were harmed by Trump's actions.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that was his big line of contention.
Yeah, so some of the talking points that kept coming up are, no one was harmed by this, and did it violate the statute of limitations on the crimes in general anyways? And the state's attorneys had very solid answers back to that. So they this whole thing went on for about an hour and a half, and a bunch of questions were flying around. And the assertion that the right wing is making, and this one video in particular, and like I said, I'm seeing it everywhere, they're making a few points. First of all, they're saying that the judges were extremely skeptical. Now, Nick, I know you're married to a lawyer. You hang out with a lot of lawyers. Would it be unusual for an appellate court to be overly skeptical and critical and asking hard-hitting questions?
Well, that's what they're there for.
Right.
I mean, that's the only reason they're there. Right.
It's the entire point of an appellate court. They're overseeing this, so they're gonna want to ask the hard questions. They're gonna want to grill down. They're gonna want to try to paint the lawyers in a corner and see if they can give answers to the questions.
100%. That is all they are there to do.
And most legal experts will tell you that you're just doing tea leaf reading. If you're trying to gauge where you think the court is going to go based on their questions, it can often be a fool's errand. Especially in an appellate court where it's a high-profile case, these judges may want to ask every question they can possibly think of so that they're covering their own bases and so that they can say, like, no, we've vetted this thoroughly and here's our conclusion.
Yes, come at it from every angle, even angles that we haven't looked at or may not even think are relevant. Let's talk about them now, and then based on your answers, we'll know where to go from here. But everything's covered at this point.
Exactly. And again, only one of the 5 judges seemed overtly critical of the state's, lawsuit against Trump. And I will tell you, I mean, I watched almost all of it. It was about an hour and a half thing, and I watched 90% of it. And I got to tell you, first of all, I didn't pick up on the vibe that any of the judges really were overtly negative or hostile or critical. And they seemed to be pretty critical of both sides.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, it didn't seem contentious to me. I mean, it just seemed like a standard business procedure in an appellate court. If anything at all sounded contentious to me, it was Trump's representation, his attorneys. I mean,
that one attorney, first of all, he's gargling rocks, but he's like bouncing around the courtroom, like all fired up and just, like, dude, take it down a notch. The 5 judges are right there. Okay.
Completely, dude. I mean, there is a line of decorum that you should, follow here. You look like a jackass.
Right. So the assertion is that these judges just destroyed the attorney general's attorneys and made them look like total fools, which this guy then makes some bizarre leap that he thinks this whole thing will be overturned, which then, of course, means his criminal convictions will also be overturned, obviously. Right.
One has nothing to do with the other, I mean, one doesn't prove anything. These are different courts, different types of cases. I mean, that's crazy. That's a crazy assertion.
It has nothing to do with each other. And I also love the fact that, okay, hold on, Trumpers. I thought the courts were all corrupt. These judges were on the take. All of a sudden, though, you hear something you like from a judge. And now you're like, oh, this court's legit. What they say is good. They can exonerate Trump.
There's, these MAGA people are taught by the very best, with Donald Trump saying like, no, I won't trust the election if we lose. If we win, then it's free and fair.
Right. It's hilarious. They were also railing on the fact that this appellate court hearing received, quote unquote, no media attention, which on one level, that's somewhat true. I mean, there's plenty of news articles about it. I read them all the ones I could find anyways, just to make sure I wasn't missing some angle. But I don't see it getting a lot of coverage on CNN, MSNBC, and several people on this guy's video commented like, I'm not even seeing this on Fox News. Why is no one talking about it? To some extent, no one's talking about it because it's an appellate court that hasn't made a decision. You're just hearing the questions, and it's somewhat of a waste, like I said, to try to read the tea leaves. Like, you can
100%.
report on the fact that, you reported the fact that it happened, but what are you supposed to do beyond that?
Yes. I mean, every article I saw, and by the way, CNN was the biggest news outlet that I saw covering the story, but it was on PBS and a few smaller ones. But you're right. I mean, what is there to say? All these articles basically highlighted the takeaway from what happened. And we have no idea what the outcome of this is going to be. We got to wait.
Yes, exactly. So the big point that these guys tried to make at the end was that I don't even know what the hell they're talking about. This guy tried to rail on the fact that by the end of this hearing, that the Democrat lawyers, which they're not, they're lawyers for the Attorney General for the state of New York. They're not like from the Democratic Party or the Biden White House or anything like that. He was trying to say that by the end of this hearing, these attorneys for the Democrats were begging the court not to sanction them. They were so nervous that they're going to be sanctioned and could lose their law licenses because they've brought such a frivolous lawsuit against Trump that these judges were threatening them with sanctions.
Dude, I saw none of that. I saw none of what he was saying at all. I mean, sanctions were brought up, but not in that regard.
Well, listen, at the end of the hearing, he's right. Lawyers were essentially begging not to be sanctioned, but it was Trump's lawyers, not the lawyers for the Attorney General of the state of New York, the Trump attorneys. Because in the original hearing, I think they were both threatened with and actually got sanctions against them. So that came up in this appellate thing. And yeah, the end of it was them begging not to be sanctioned, that there was a legal basis for our argument. So we just wanted it on the record so it could be appealed later. So it's just complete garbage that the Democratic lawyers, that the Attorney General's lawyers were arguing not to be sanctioned, that they were begging for their professional lives.
I don't even know how he could have interpreted it that way, right? Because and he didn't. I mean, he's spreading misinformation, dude, to get these talking points rolling because there's no way to misinterpret what happened.
I had to watch the ending twice because I was like, did I miss something? Like, it's Trump's lawyers that are being threatened with sanctions and are arguing. But I'm like, maybe the AG comes back and no. It's not on there at all. No news article talks about it. It's not on the video. It's Trump's lawyers that don't want to be sanctioned because they know they screwed up.
When I Googled about this court case in the beginning, we got this, midweek, and I Googled, started trying to find some articles on it, and I typed in, sanctions, highlighted the word sanctions. Yeah. Not one article came up speaking of sanctions on Tuesday or Wednesday of last week.
Yeah. I did the same thing. I was having a hard time finding it. It wasn't until I went to the actual video that was filmed live and it's on YouTube and stuff that I even heard them talking about sanctions and then realized that, yeah, it's the Trump attorneys that are under the sanctions and they're the ones begging for it. Listen, here's the only small bone I may throw the MAGA people for this whole thing is that almost all the judges did seem a little skeptical over the size of the penalty. So I would argue the best case scenario here for MAGA is you're not getting the charges dropped. Maybe the $450 million drops down to $300 million or something. Like, it's still going to be a huge penalty. But there was no tea leaf indication that they're just going to drop these charges. No indication that the Democratic side, the state attorney generals are getting sanctioned, and nothing to do with the fact that this could somehow relate to the criminal charges.
No, I agree with you on all of that. I think what people are forgetting about this whole thing, and like when I have talked about this with different people in my life, is that, you always hear the talking point, real estate people do this all the time. Like, this is nothing new. Like, people over evaluate properties constantly. It's just a part of the business. Yeah. First of all, yes, it does happen. But second of all, that's bullshit that it happens all the time and there's nothing wrong with it. And these lawyers were talking about, these Democratic lawyers were talking about, they argued that the statute was intended to protect honest businesses that were not engaging in the fraud. So what that basically translates to is that Donald Trump, by doing this, and any other company who does this, gains all these marks that honest business people can't. So they make, in this case, the estimation is, $450 million in profit by doing this. But at the same time, you're screwing honest business people because they're not getting these loans and these terms. Yep. So you're fucking people over.
Absolutely. It'd be like saying, everyone speeds all the time. Well, how come I got pulled over for speeding? Just because 10 other cars got to get away with it doesn't mean you get to get away with it. I see that on the body cams all the time. There were 10 other cars going the same speed. How come I got pulled over? Well, it's your lucky day. I pulled you over. So you're the one that's going to get the speeding ticket, just like the Trump world. And yes, as the attorney general's lawyers pointed out, you don't actually even have to show harm, but there was. And it's unfair competitive practices because, like you just pointed out, that's money that wasn't being loaned to other honest businesses stepping up that didn't have as favorable of terms on paper, that weren't real. And, what if it had defaulted? It screws up the whole system. Those attorneys made very valid points as to any of these points of the statute of limitations or its undue prosecution. I mean, they covered their bases very well. So that's why I say there's no indication this is just going to be dropped. Best case, the fines will go down.
Yeah, that's I would agree with that. So we'll have to wait and see.
And that's the other part. We will have to wait and see. This is most likely not going to be announced until after the election's over, yet again. This appellate court usually takes several weeks to announce their decisions, so we may get it right before the election, but I would be willing to bet they're going to hold off until after. So this is being argued as a pie-in-the-sky MAGA thing where they think they have something to hold on to. They're getting all their sheep wound up about it, but it's not what they're claiming to be. So the official vocal minority assessment here is this is MAGA bullshit. And don't any of you liberals get yourselves all worked up over this notion. Trump is not going to skate on this. And again, this is the civil case, nothing to do with the criminal case, and that's where the real fireworks will eventually be.
Let's fact check that.
That's a fact.
Oh, good.
So there you go. Corey, request served. I hope this clarifies things. Now you can share this and go tell all your other friends that you've got the right answer because we're right. I mean, we're left, but we're right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I know exactly what you mean. But yeah, tell your friends. You can make political requests here to get information factually. And we'll break it down for you. Steve's real good at it. And I'll back him up the best I can, ladies and gentlemen.
You've done it well. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
This is Need to Know News. News you need to know. Start the news chant, please.
Come on. News, 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 news.
Well, politics are crazy, so we've been doing mainly a political podcast. We give you a couple each and every week. The other one is not political, but this one has remained political, at least for the last couple of months here, because there's just so much shit going on. Are we going to look at the polls today? With just 3 weeks to go until Election Day, a trio of new national polls in the White House race suggests former President Donald Trump is erasing gains made by Vice President Kamala Harris the last couple of months after replacing President Biden atop on this Democrat 2024 ticket. Looks like she's starting to lose some points. The survey indicates a margin of error race between the two major party presidential nominees. Trump enjoying some momentum in this final stretch. Harris edged Trump 50% to 48% among likely voters questioned in an ABC News poll. That's down from a 6-point lead for the vice president last month. We're starting to see some polls change here. But as we always say, polls are polls, right? We got to look at them, but they don't mean everything. We're also seeing people that have made presidential predictions for the last 20 years and have been right 98% of the time, making all predictions for Vice President Harris. So take of it what you will. What do you think about this?
Interesting. I mean, polls do need to be taken with a grain of salt. I still think, as we've talked about before, that they're undersampling or underpolling some of the Kamala base of support. She right now has the biggest margin on a gender gap in the history of politics. She leads Trump with women by about 30 points. That has never happened before. And when they do polling, they normally only poll so many women because that's what the electorate normally is. So they stop polling at a certain number. Same with the youth vote. Kamala's up double digits, 20 points. So I do think there's probably undersampling a little bit. But yeah, I mean, this is the reality. It appears that some Republicans are coming back home to Trump, that they were saying they were sitting this one out or they were going to vote Harris or just, third party or whatever. It appears It's gotten some momentum back with that. And yeah, there's a couple of polls that essentially show statistically a dead even race. And, as we all know, we don't elect presidents on the popular vote, unfortunately. So it's always, as always, going to come down to these swing states. But this is a phenomenal reminder to everyone out there. Don't get cocky. Don't get complacent. Keep knocking on doors. Keep doing your social media postings. Keep everyone fired up. And on behalf of men, we are screwing this up. Men are tilting heavily towards Trump right now. Even African-American men and Latino men in margins we haven't seen before. So women, youth vote out there, this is going to primarily be up to you. Nick and I are doing what we can for the middle-aged white dudes kind of thing, but the women and the youth vote, you can win this election for us. You've got the numbers if you show up. It's not coming out in the polls, but if you show up on election day, I'm telling you, we can still win this thing. But don't get cocky, don't get complacent.
Each of you alone, each of the categories you mentioned, whether it be the youth vote or women, alone have the numbers. So, I mean, if we show up and vote, it could be a big blowout if all women, all youth go out and vote.
As we talked about before, if the youth would vote in the same numbers that the senior citizens always vote in, just traditionally what they voted, if the youth matched that, this election would be over. So the youth has a chance. The women have a chance. We've been saying for years on this show that women should be ruling the world. You're a majority of the population. You're a little more rational, even-minded in a lot of ways. So we need you. We need you to get out there.
We need you now more than ever. I bring up the polls because Trump's new campaign strategy, people are touting as incoherent as his rally speeches. This is fascinating. I'm first going to start with just this. Here's a little rant from one of his latest rallies, and I want to see if you can make any sense of this unedited clip. Okay, I will divulge that it is edited just with time gaps, but this is how it happened. Okay,
We are the piggy bank that everyone wants, that someday we will continue along the path. It's been an amazing path. It's been a horrible period of time, but almost the last 4 years, I will tell you that if I get elected, we will be a piggy bank stronger than ever before, but we will be a fool no longer. I have more complaints on grocery. The word grocery, it's sort of simple word, but it sort of means like everything you eat. The stomach is speaking. It always does. It's so simple. I mean, this isn't like Elon with his rocket ships that land within 12 inches on the moon where they wanted to land. And they're coming down very slowly, landing on a raft in the middle of the ocean someplace with a circle. Boom. Reminded me of the Biden circles that he used to have, right? He'd have 8 circles and he couldn't fill them up. But then I heard he beat us with the popular vote. I don't know.
the fuck is he talking about, dude?
I was going to say, he is a master chef with his word salads. And, a lot of people are talking about the cognitive decline. Chris Christie this weekend came out and said, I've known this guy for a long time, and he's got friggin' dementia. He's in mental decline. But, no one cares, certainly not his base. And I don't know what that means. And by the way, did Elon Musk land on the moon? Did I miss that? Do we have some rover? I don't think he landed anything on the moon, but that's why
I didn't even get moon out. I don't know what he's talking about, dude. Landing in circles and rockets and Elon Musk.
What are the Biden 8 circles? What is that?
I have no idea, dude. I have no idea what any of that means. I was just like, you started this off talking about a piggy bank, a strong or a weak piggy bank, and then you jumped into groceries and the tummy always talks. What?
And by the way, that whole thing about groceries, what a word. What does that even mean? Spoken like somebody who's never gone grocery shopping, clearly.
Completely. Yeah, everything is delivered to the guy. We know that. Just show us your true self. I don't know a lot about groceries, but he can't do that. What a word. What a word.
Grocery 10 times. It starts to sound funny. Grocery. It's funny. I like grocery. Sounds like Rover from Sesame Street. You know Sesame Street? That's part of New York City. I own buildings in New York City. Hey, do you know New York City makes pizza? I like pizza. Pizza is from Italy, do you know?
I could see the exact speech happening, dude. I mean, you're really riffing like Trump does.
But I connected those at least. At least there was a thread. You know?
Yes, exactly. So when I say that his latest campaign strategy is incoherent as his rally speeches, that is what I'm talking about. With less than a month until this election, every hour of every day obviously matters right now for presidential candidates. President Trump is taking off from hitting not only all the center states of our country, but he's going to all the blue states right now. So in these final weeks, people find it baffling that Trump is doing events in Colorado, California, Illinois, and New York, states that are virtually impossible for him to win, right?
Yeah. I have no idea what he's doing. I assume he's doing some covert fundraising while he's in these parts of the country. That would be the only thing that would make sense. Otherwise, yeah, what the hell is he doing? And you got Coachella on your list here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we can talk about it right now. I mean, so he was at Coachella. First of all, this is a little embarrassing for me, but I've never known Coachella as anything other than a music festival. Like, I didn't even know people live in Coachella, right?
Yeah. No, it's a part of California. It's a town or city or whatever it is. But yeah, so Trump decided to hold a rally in Coachella, and that epically backfired. I mean, first of all, again, why are you in California? That just doesn't make sense, period. But yeah, so it turned out to be one of those festival disaster things where for whatever reason they had to bus people to the actual speech, and people were leaving like always. People were getting bored. Apparently the audio sucked and all that. But did you hear about the disaster that happened after the whole thing was over?
Yes, and I saw a video of it, and, I thought, should we play some of this video? And it's not that entertaining. You really have to see it, so we could just talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, the buses that were supposed to take all these people, 5 miles back to their cars stopped showing up. Now, the rumbling was that Trump didn't pay the bus company and they just reneged, or I don't know what part of that is true, but the buses certainly did not come back and pick up all the people. And a bunch of people started walking miles, which took them hours to walk. And boy, it's almost as if Trump does not give a shit about his supporters.
You think, dude? That doesn't make any sense. Having not known anything really about Coachella, I will tell you that it's in the desert, and where these folks were, that it is dark. There are no street lamps around. So these people were standing in the pitch black. And I mean, there was the video that I saw, a guy was just going along, and it looked like a few thousand people out there just waiting around there was one bus. And yeah, word has it Trump didn't pay the bus company, so they were like, screw that, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
That is insane, dude, that all these old people, I mean, hey, it serves you right, dude. I'm not saying you deserve to be stuck out there, but I'm kind of saying you deserve to be stuck out there.
I'll say it. Yeah, I think they deserve to be stuck out there in the desert. I did see one woman get interviewed. She went there with her parents and said that she was on the fence about Trump, but after the rally, she was like, I'm voting Harris. Screw all of this debacle you just put us through.
100%. That should be everybody at this point. But it's not for some reason. I wonder how many people that got stuck out there and had to make the long walk in the pitch black, how many are still going to vote for him? Did it change anything for him, you think?
99.9% are still going to vote for him. They don't care about any of it. The facts, how he treats them, nothing. The MAGA group has been there since the beginning and is not going away. And as we mentioned earlier, some of these never Trump Republicans are starting to come back to him, which is just, you people have a rubber spine, like grow a pair already. But it's happening.
I think this would be a good time in the podcast as I wind down my news story to grab your small children and, get them to wherever they can hear the podcast. I think it's important that they hear, a little inspiration, what they could be someday in their country, and a man to look up to, President Trump. Okay, you got your kids there? Oh, it's perfect. Let's not forget.
I did try and fuck her. She was married.
It's huge news, Sarah.
And I moved on her very heavily. In fact, I took her out furniture shopping. She wanted to get some furniture. I said, I'll show you where they have some nice furniture. I moved on her like a bitch, but I couldn't get there. And she was married. And all of a sudden, I see her. She's now got the big phony tits and everything. She's totally changed her look. I better use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything.
You could do anything. So, no, hopefully.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
I tell some of the people in our comment section fights of like, hey, Nick and I are famous. Can I grab your daughter by the, like I hear us famous people get to do it. Some people know we're famous. So therefore,
people are saying we're allowed to do it, Steve. We're allowed to do it. Yeah, I think people forget. Like, there's so much shit that comes out about him that I just think it's important to remind people of the person he is. But I don't know that it does any good.
Yeah. And by the way, what does that mean? I moved on her like a bitch. If you're a guy, being a bitch is not a good thing in any scenario. That's not complimentary shape.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows you how out of touch he is about, like, being a real person. Like, I moved on her like a bitch. Is he calling her a bitch? Like, he moved on her like she was just a stupid bitch?
No, you're giving him too much credit. He just brain farted, misspoke or whatever, or thought he was sounding hip and cool. He's trying to riff with another guy, locker room talk. Like,
yeah. Well, one thing that we have proven by playing that is Donald Trump is a no good piece of shit.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Need to know news.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire.
News you need to know.
I got bronchitis. Ain't nobody got time for that.
It's wonderful.
It is wonderful. Let's continue the theme of, exposing the kind of person Donald Trump really is, as you just set up very nicely there. So after much hoopla, after some litigation to try to stop it, the new movie, The Apprentice, is in theaters around the country, although it's in very limited release. I tried to check around my area, and I could not find a theater actually playing it.
I wonder why, dude. I mean, I know that there's been, some threats of suing to try and not get this movie to be released, using it as election interference and everything else. But why aren't major theaters picking this movie up?
It's toxic is the unfortunate answer. They know that half their audience is MAGA and they don't want protests and they don't want to get involved in all this political crap. And on one level, I don't blame them. I wish some of the major chains would have some cojones and put it all over the place. But I don't know. I don't know how quickly it's going to be available for streaming or downloading, hopefully before the election here. But if it's in your area, and you probably have to be in a metropolitan area to see it, but I would encourage people to go. However, I've got a little article here that highlights some of the assertions made and tries to give some of the facts behind it.
Okay.
So let's run through a couple of the highlights of how terrible Donald Trump is. So what's fact? What's fiction in the brand new Apprentice movie? Couple of points to highlight here. So the movie is essentially about a young Donald Trump in the late 70s into the 80s, and he's Roy Cohen's apprentice, for lack of a better term, or literally. And, Roy Cohen is apparently the guy that taught Trump all of the Trumpisms things, that everything you do is the best. You don't ever admit defeat. You just, they punch you, you punch twice as hard back. So that's where all this kind of started from. And that's what the movie's about.
Yes. And, I think the huge thing you said in there is, like, you do not admit defeat. And if you have been defeated, you lie about it.
Exactly. So one of the assertions made in the movie, did Donald Trump have a homoerotic relationship with Roy Cohen?
Ooh.
As portrayed in the movie, Trump and Cohen really did meet in 1973 at a members-only club in Manhattan. They got to talking, and Cohen agreed to represent the Trump family in the housing discrimination lawsuit that we all know about, where they were trying to prohibit black people from living in their homes there, or the apartments that Trump owned. From there, Cohen took him under his wing and taught Trump his cutthroat ways. There clearly was a father-son dynamic to the relationship. They're talking to the director of the movie here. On another level, there was some homoerotic subtext. One of the things I found in my research is that a lot of Roy's lovers, I didn't know Roy Cohen was gay. I'm out of the loop on this.
Yeah, me too.
Apparently he died of AIDS in the 80s, and Trump kind of disowned him near the end and whatnot. So I didn't know the guy was gay. But so apparently a lot of his lovers were, quote, young, blonde, blue-eyed men who bore a striking resemblance to a young Donald Trump.
Yeah, I wonder, did he move on him like a bitch, dude? Like, you know what I mean?
Right. He said, I think Roy was attracted to Trump in a way, and this movie is sort of a love story. In the film, for instance, we see that Donald is going to get married, which really breaks Roy's heart.
This is so interesting. I had no idea about any of this shit.
Right. So there is some homoerotic subtext to this. And yeah, Roy was gay, died of AIDS, and yet here's Donald Trump having a largely anti-LGBTQ platform and being a discriminatory Republican, even though that's his roots. The guy that taught him to be Trump was gay.
Well, and how many times do we see, the people that are gay that can't come out of the closet that, speak this way, whether it's a pastor or, someone like that. They always talk so terribly about the gay community when oftentimes they're secretly gay themselves.
Interesting tidbit about Roy there. How about this one? It's in the movie. This scene is apparently quite stomach-churning and grotesque and violent. We've heard about it before. Did Ivana Trump really accuse Donald Trump of raping her during their marriage? In the movie's most stomach-churning scene, Donald tells Ivana that he's no longer attracted to her, to which she retorts that he is fat and balding. Donald then throws Ivana to the floor, climbs on top of her, proceeds to sexually assault his wife as she screams for him to stop. The alleged rape is taken from a court deposition under oath that Ivana gave during her 1990 divorce from Trump. Sherman, the director, says, in fact, the scene was described in the divorce papers was actually far more graphic and brutal than the one we dramatized in the film. Now, I will point out, Ivana later in 2015, as Trump was running for president, did recant the story. She is now dead. A lot of people have wondered, why did you recant it all those years later, right, as Trump was running for president? What pressure, what offer, what made you do it all those years later when she stood by it for years and swore to it under oath?
Yeah, and I wonder, did she get paid? Who knows? People have been threatened to the point of having to hire security, having to move. This MAGA crowd, including Trump himself, it starts from the head down. They threaten people with intimidation and violence and everything else. So who knows why she recanted?
Maybe she was thinking about the kids. Maybe she saw Trump's legacy unfolding and it could affect the children more. So she didn't want to interfere with the election. Who knows? But for some reason, she recanted it after several decades of swearing it was true. So it's in the movie. And apparently that is the scene that Trump was most freaked out about and trying to get this thing stopped with legal action.
Listen, even if it was recanted and we don't know why, okay, even let's say, it sounds like a terrible scene, and I'm sorry that happened to her. Let's say it didn't happen, okay? Do you know anyone in your life? I'm not saying false accusations don't happen ever in this world, but do you know anyone in your life who the word rape and the accusation of the action comes up so frequently with so many different people?
Right. No, it's a super valid point. He's been accused of rape, molestation, watching underage women at the Miss Universe pageant or Miss USA, whatever, undressing in the dressing room. He's been accused of sexual malfeasance many, many times. And one could argue that if Ivana was going to make up some story, why would she make up marital rape? A lot of people don't even think that's a thing or it's hard to prove or whatever. If she wanted to slander the guy, I don't think that would be what she made up. But,
Yeah, right. It would be an accusation of, that he did something else weird or something like that. But you're so right. It is, unfortunately, it's hard to prove. And some people don't even believe in marital rape. It's a real fucking thing. But it's, for some reason, it's hard to prove.
Right. No pun intended either, by the way.
Right.
My last point for the movie, I'll point out. This is, kind of the fun one. Did Donald Trump really have liposuction and a hair transplant? Now, keep in mind what I just told you. Ivana said that you're fat and going bald, and that's what sent him into a fit of rage. So, Did he really have liposuction and a hair transplant? That would that would explain a lot of the weird hair stuff, right?
So, dude, what I have heard, and I've read multiple stories on this, is that he did have a hair transplant, and he had it done so early that, it scarred. And that's exactly why he wears, that comb over to cover those scars. Because what he actually had done, it wasn't a hair transplant. It was a thing where they cut your scalp and they shorten it and they pull it forward to bring your hairline down. So that's why he wears his hair the way he does.
Right. So let's hear what they have to say. In her divorce deposition, Ivana claimed that Donald flew into a, quote, fit of rage due to the pain of a 1989 scalp reduction procedure, also known as alopecia reduction. The surgery is intended to correct balding. The alleged operation was performed by Dr. Stephen Hofflin, who Ivana also purports to have done liposuction on Donald's chin and waist, according to Vanity Fair. Now, the Apprentice movie shows the ex-commander-in-chief undergoing both procedures in the movie's final moments. Now, before I finish what I'm about to read here, have you noticed in any of the trailers, Sebastian Stan, who's a famous actor, he's most well known from the Marvel movies, he's the Winter Soldier, Captain America's buddy. Have you noticed that in the trailers and the clips you've seen, he's not talking like Donald Trump?
Yes. I've only seen a couple of scenes, and it's him in the back of that frickin' limo, and I wondered, why doesn't he talk like that?
Right. So this will answer that. The Apprentice shows the ex-commander-in-chief undergoing this procedure in the movie's last moments. The director says it's a visual metaphor of the Frankenstein monster, the final piece of the monster being made. He says it's the first time in the entire movie that Sebastian Stan looks, acts, and now speaks like the present-day Donald Trump. The liposuction and hair transplant are the physical manifestation of the Trump we all now know.
Wow. I want to see this movie, dude. I really want to see it.
This reminds me of the end of the third Star Wars movie, the prequel, where Anakin Skywalker's finally mauled and, burned alive, and they turn him into Darth Vader. That's how that movie ends, where we finally get to see the iconic Vader mask go on, and he is now Darth Vader that we all know. That's how that movie ends, and it sounds very similar to what they're doing here. He finally has the lipo, the hair is weird, and now he embodies it and talks like Trump does.
That's a great thing to relate this to, because you're so right. This movie, I have heard the directors say, is not an attack and made to interfere in any way into the election. This movie was just put out to give you a little background on where Donald Trump came from. I mean, he's constantly talking about like, hey, I got the man of the year on this Times magazine. Like, why can't we do a little expose on who he is and do a movie? Any other time, he would love it if it was filled with great content, and made him look like a wonderful person. He'd be like, yes, do a movie on me. But This is a true story, dude.
Yeah. And that's a good point. I mean, everything that's in this movie is drawn from other people's testimony, legal depositions, well-known stories, interview Trump did back in the day. Like, no one has been able to point to something that is just a crazy fabrication.
Right. Yeah, I want to see it, and hopefully it'll come to streaming soon. I'm not quite sure why they didn't just release to streaming right away.
Yeah, I'm hoping that when they see that it's not as widespread as they were hoping, maybe they'll amp that up and make it an option before the election. But yeah, the full title of the movie, by the way, is The Apprentice, an American Horror Story.
Oof. Dude, I thanks for sharing it, because now I'm even more excited to see it.
This is Need to Know News. News you need to know.
Stephen, we talked a lot about the hurricanes and the misinformation that was happening last week on the podcast. And with such bad weather, the hurricanes happening, lots of people at the rally are speaking out on what they think about all these hurricanes, and they're going far beyond the misinformation spread by Donald Trump about all these hurricanes. This is, the good liars. They go out to different Trump rallies, and they just interview people that are there. This is a lady that they interviewed about the hurricanes and what her thoughts on the hurricanes are. What are they and where did they come from? This will blow your mind.
What do you think happened with the hurricanes?
I think there was an upcoming storm, and then I think government set in with whatever it is that they do. I don't know all the specifics about it. I'm not an expert in cloud seeding or whatever it is that they use to magnify the storm to a higher degree to disturb a land that maybe wanted for lithium that Harris's husband is partaking in.
You think that Milton, they're making it stronger?
Went from a 2 to immediately to a 5, like instantaneously.
You're implying that the government made a hurricane stronger to hurt its own country, the United States of America?
Correct.
And what would be the gain of that?
There's been people out there, if they have an Alexa, I don't know if you've heard that, and they've asked what caused Milton.
Right.
You can go on there now. It's already predicted the number of deaths and the amount of it's already predicted it. On a Google, it won't do that. If you ask it about Helene, it'll tell you the government actively used seed clouding. This is before Helene even happened.
Why would a country want to have a hurricane be strong and hit its own country?
Because they want to control certain places. And if you're looking at where the hurricane's going, it's a lot of red states. If you're looking at the counties in North Carolina that were hit, there were all of them, 26 out of 28 of those counties were for Trump. They're doing whatever they can because they can't rig the election.
Even control the weather?
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, where to start? I thought we knew how to rig elections in our liberal cabal. Why would we have to create hurricanes?
We've always said, like, if we were gonna rig in an election, like, why wouldn't we rig it so big? That there were no questions, that there couldn't be any people saying, like, what happened here? Are we sure this is right? Like, this is so crazy to me that people would actually feel this way. But you know what? There's people sitting at home and they're listening to a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Marjorie Taylor Greene pops on your screen and tells you this is actually what's happening, dude. The government controls the weather and people are eating it up.
Yeah. I mean, they are eating it up. The gullible sheep are anyways.
Yes.
And I mean, you could probably tell them any conspiracy theory and they'd eat it up. And it's insanity. It's insanity. I mean, literally. First of all, Georgia went blue last time. I don't know why we would try to destroy Georgia right now. We need them. Why would we do this a month out from the election? Why wouldn't we do it like the day of or the day before? How come the GOP's not sending hurricanes to California, Washington, Oregon? Those are all coastal places. Why not hit New York City with a hurricane since we can just control them so easily?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't.
That's why.
I can't wrap my head around it. When Donald Trump talked about, years ago when he was the president, talked about, sending nuclear weapons into the eye of a hurricane to stop it and everything. Like, these people have been believing this shit since then. Like,
And this lithium mine stuff. This is just the QAnon conspiracy theory crap. But yes, you're hearing it regurgitated. People just hear this stuff and they just spit it right back out.
I mean, she didn't even complete her point. It was almost like Donald Trump gives a rally, like just says, Alexa, it's not happening on Google. Like, you didn't even explain what's happening. But, they're basically saying that, like, if you ask Alexa about these hurricanes, before they even happened, Alexa already had the death count. You won't find that on Google. Like, that's a lot of...
How would cloud seeding let us know how many people are going to die in the hurricane? Like, well, that's pretty specific.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously all bullshit. And I don't know how you wrap your head around some of this stuff and think, gosh, that is what's happening. And, it brings up... somebody brought up this point to me. I was talking about people that believe all of this stuff, and they were like, these are the people, for the most part, that have been kicked around by life, that feel like, we finally have a hero who's standing up for us. Life has been so shitty for me and has treated me so poorly. Here's a guy being a champion to me, and they eat it up. And this is so much proof that is right on the money, because you listen to anything. It doesn't have to be factual, doesn't have to even make sense for you to believe it.
Let me ask you this question. question, Nick. If us Democrats are able to control the weather and we're sending hurricanes to Florida, why is Mar-a-Lago still standing?
That's a great. I don't have an answer for that, dude.
I mean, that's where the eye would be sent if we were controlling these things. There would be no more Mar-a-Lago.
Yes. Oops. And also I like to lodge a complaint, dude, that I would love for the rain to stop in Seattle as much as it does. I mean, we would do good things for us too, right?
Why can't we just change the climate? All this climate change crap, if we can just control it. I mean, this is silly. It's stupid. It's literally just fucking stupid. And this is, again, why I say we just got to vote stupid out. There's no rationalizing with these people. We just got to outvote them.
Yeah, women, let's show up, the youth vote, let's get this going. Speaking of which, your firstborn voted for the first time in the election. Did you have any conversation beyond the text? I saw the picture of them with their ballot, getting ready to send it in, but they seem stoked.
Yeah, I am so proud of my firstborn, now living in Chicago, going to college. And not only did, she vote, and was she so proud to vote for the first, hopefully female president and minority and liberal progressive values and all that. Like, she was so proud to cast her first vote. She has also gotten a job working at the polls on Election Day in a major city.
Wow, that is so cool, dude.
At 18, not only voting, but working at the polls. I've never worked at the poll, and I didn't vote when I was in my first election either.
You've worked on the poll, but not at the poll, right? I mean, congratulations. It says a lot about you, and you've shown the importance of this, but they really took it on themselves. I mean, as soon as you kind of opened the book for them, they were like really interested in all of this. And social injustice, I know, huge issue for your firstborn, as it is to a lot of us Blues. And I'm proud of them, dude.
I appreciate that. They're definitely a chip off the old block, and makes me very proud. Quick funny thing, though, when she went to her first job training day for working at the polls, they were trying to train them on how to check people in when they come in. Like, you got to find their name on the list and check a box. So they gave them a fake list of voter names. All of the names on this fake voter poll are the real names of Marvel superheroes. So it was all Peter Parker, Steve Rogers, Carol Danvers, like all Marvel characters were the fake names they used. How appropriate is that?
That is so appropriate because obviously, they're a big comic book fan. That is so great, dude. Right. Chicago, you say. I'm surprised that she's been able to grab eggs and is actually still alive. She's in Chicago.
Yes. Hasn't been gunned down yet, in a major city. So
good.
Speaking of Chicago, though, in Illinois, I do need to do our Trump poop story, and then we can wrap the show up here.
Please.
All right. So Obama, he's out there on the campaign trail. He's stumping for Kamala, obviously. And if you forgot, Obama is originally from Illinois and Chicago. Boy, did he have a great moment. I don't know if he's been listening to our podcast, because we've been covering the fact that Trump is incontinent, that he poops his pants. We've been talking about this for a couple of years, right?
Yes. I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time.
Yeah. So Obama was at a speech in Pennsylvania, and he was talking about how Kamala's trying to help, working class Americans. And he says, I won't do my Obama impersonation, but he said that she wants to make it easier to afford stuff like a crib or a car seat or diapers. Obama said, I remember changing diapers. Do you think that Trump has ever changed a diaper? Someone in the crowd yelled out, only his own.
So fantastic, dude. It was so fantastic because it was such good timing.
Right. So he said, do you think Trump's ever changed a diaper? Someone says his own. Obama responds by saying, I almost said that, but I decided that I shouldn't go there.
Yeah, I love it too, because Obama's been so classy through everything, and for the longest time didn't even want to spend time talking about Trump. Now he's realized that, hey, we have to, dude. I mean, we have to talk about this. So for him to go from that to, I was going to mention, he's probably changed his own diaper.
It's hilarious how mainstream Trump dumping his pants has become. Even Obama was like, maybe I should go there with that judge. I'll err on the side of caution, but I'm glad someone in the audience just helped him get there. And the fact that he even acknowledged he was thinking of going there is freaking brilliant.
Yes, so fantastic. I had an interesting conversation quickly with Rachel as we were taking a walk this weekend, and she said that she was listening to somebody speak, and they were saying that it's great that Obama is doing all this stuff for Harris. But that said, the youth vote, they don't have any idea. I mean, they know who Obama is, maybe, but they don't have the love for Obama like we do. So somebody from a younger demographic that's got as much outreach as Obama, good luck finding that, needs to get out and start talking to some of these younger voters. And I don't know who that is, but I thought, oh, that's true, dude. Not everyone felt with Obama what we did.
Yeah.
They weren't born.
That's fair. I think the answer is Taylor Swift. And I'm glad she's done what she has done. I would just like in these last couple of weeks, though, to see her actually step it up, go do some stump speeches or do something tangible, because that youth vote could sway it. And she is their overlord. So she's the possible winner.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I hate Taylor Swift is what Donald Trump said. We love Taylor Swift around here. We're definitely Swifties.
Right. And one last quick point here. The question of has Trump ever changed diapers was answered by Donald Trump in a 2005 radio interview. Trump said, "No, I don't do that. Changing diapers, it's not my thing." You are a, no pun intended, shitty dad if you have never changed a diaper. That is the classic textbook example of a bad father if you think you're above changing diapers. So go shit yourself, Trump.
Yeah, it's not really my bag. Oh, God, dude.
Oh, I love changing diapers. That's why I, as a dad, did it all the time. No, it's just you're a good person. So
of course. You're a good person for listening to this podcast, whether you love us or hate us. We appreciate you. The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve.
VocalMinority.net. Find the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, but YouTube, TikTok, and Reddit. Those are our faves, so go take part.
Call the comment line 844-48-VOCAL. Until next time.
What's up, bitches? It's your boy, Joe Rogan. Thanks for checking out Nick and Steve and the Vocal Minority. The boys give you 2 podcasts each and every week. If you like my podcast, you're going to love these guys. This is my official personal endorsement. Please be a champion and blow these guys up.